So we've got some new information on the upcoming app submission process. So this is for apps built inside ChatGPT. So as we know, App Store is about to go public at the time of recording. This is the 5th of December. This is basically the most information we've been given around how app approval process will look like. Super important information if you are a developer looking to get your apps to the 800 million users that are on ChatGPT. This resource comes from Testing Catalog. So I think in everything that I've seen, a very reputable resource, but I've not seen it shared anywhere else. So just wanted to call that out. But nonetheless, we are going to walk through this flow because I think this is, an indication of exactly what things are going to look like. Yeah, it basically has screenshots. So we'll just kind of like run through it now.
Yeah, so we cannot verify this, but it looks very plausible, right? So maybe OpenAI leaked it. They want to show the experience on how you may submit apps to the OpenAI app ecosystem. And honestly, it looks pretty good. So let's walk through it. The first thing to call out is that it's just integrated into the platform dashboard, right? So if you've ever played around with any APIs or any of the OpenAI dev services, you've probably seen this. This is where you create your API keys. This is where you have that agent builder. It's already live. You can create custom GPTs. So it's going to be something that's very accessible. And I don't know if they're going to put this in the second position, but it does show that they want people to click on this. I tried to actually reverse search this cat to figure out anything about the creator. It doesn't pop up anything. You'll have an overview of your apps with a clear new app icon. It almost makes it feel easy, right? Like, okay, let's create an app. And it has a couple steps. It's not super clear with this dark UI, but you see info, you see MCP, you see testing, screenshot, and review. It's not a complicated process, all things considering. You could have imagined to have pages and pages of detailed information, submit code, submit your ability approvals, right? Something you'd expect for, the early apps, right? Because they're being a little bit exclusive now on who they're working with. This makes me feel like they want to have a lot of apps submitted. They're not making the barrier very high. So if we just walk through what it takes to submit an app, you're going to have a logo. They're clear about the specifications, light and optional dark. By the way, like I've been working on some of these apps, always do dark because a lot of people will use dark mode, and it often looks crazy when you don't have a dark version of your logo or your app. Your app name, then subtitle, description. This does go down a little bit. We don't really see if they're on the scroll bar if it goes down a lot, but I can't imagine this to be a very long form. Yeah,
I
go
think, I
ahead.
think something to call out there, which is important, is just on the page above. It seems there like they are just sort of like standard fields, right? Put the name in, put the site subtitle in, give a description. These are really critical fields because this is all about discoverability. So in here, what you put is going to be critical for your app being found. This is going to work, and I've got general comments around this throughout. This looks like a very similar process to the App Store on mobile. And I suspect they're going to be just as rigorous. Like Vincent said, they're clearly trying to just get apps to be there, but it's not going to be, quote unquote, easy per se to get an app on the App Store. You're going to have to put something decent, I would have thought, particularly if you don't want to get promotion. They'll probably let people's reviews and uses then determine how discovered it gets, same as the iPhone. But those fields are important because effectively you're going to be trending for keywords. Yeah, I think that's important points to pull out. And I think they've got more on that later as well.
The MCP with apps, it's something you develop, right? It's on your server, you host it, you create the endpoint that ChatGPT understands. You may have authentication, so you'll have to configure that. That will definitely more inputs if you select, some sort of 0.0. Then there's something called scrape MCP. Not 100% sure what that means, but it seems to be some sort of way to import information from your MCP server, metadata, for instance. Then testing, now this is where I think you really communicate what your app is about, when it should be triggered. This is going to be kind of unfamiliar to if you've submitted and created like mobile apps because of that discoverability. Describe what the core use cases you support, user prompt, right? So the exact prompt or interaction we should conduct to begin the test. Pools triggered. So an MCP server, which is that piece of code you create, may have multiple experiences it creates. Could be like, for instance, if you a little, then it shows a calculator. Like I want to do addition, it shows an addition calculator. I want to do subtraction, it shows a subtraction calculator. I don't know why you would ever separate the two, but it just shows that there are different experiences inside an app. You may want to be very specific. These are called tools. And then also the expected
Yeah.
output. So this is where you want to start to make sure that the experience around the app inside ChatGPT makes sense. So this is just input, and it's going to be an OpenAI team that's going to take that, play around with it. They'll have some automated testing to make sure that that is going to be experience that you want around your app inside.
Yeah, totally. And I think this is really important to call out because if you go back up to the testing phase, I just want people to understand about where your app can be found. So I believe there's going to be two main ways that your app's going to be found. You're going to have an app store, right? That's very similar to what we have today with the iPhone. Someone is going to go to the app store, search something, and then they're going to get results. That's going to be typical keyword based, right? That is likely going to be probably based off both, but probably more based off app info. So you're going to have a similar experience to ASO. We're optimizing keywords. This is where it's new. You can now, because of the way LLMs, happen, just by someone prompting, get your app to appear. And so there's sort of these like two different optimization pieces you've got to do. One is like be found in the app store. When someone searches, proposal generator, you want yours to show up, right? But then there's if they do a query around creating a proposal, you also want it to show up. So it's sort of like two different ways you need to optimize for. It's not just the same as the app store where it's all about optimizing for the store. You've now got to think, I need to optimize for the actual LLM and the query as well.
They also mention at least. That's interesting, right? They want you to be quite exhaustive here. So at least means you could probably T.
Yeah, that is actually really interesting that they say that, and it really does make you think as well when you talk about like good and bad use cases. It's all around this. It is just backwards engineering prompts, figuring out therefore what are the most interesting use cases.
They say test cases, so I think an OpenAI team will probably run these, play with your app, right? And make sure that it behaves as expected. I think those test use cases will also then become part of the metadata or something that helps ChatGPT control when you might see this app. So I think, like don't think these are just test cases. I would really just assume that this could become part of your app discoverability. Release notes and then confirming that you agree with their terms, and then submit for review, right? Not just going to go live, going to be put on a queue. I think you could expect a lot of apps to be submitted. So I don't think we could say anything about how fast their turnaround time will be. It'll be basically based off of how fast they want to go with this. That said, if you're on top of this and you're interested in submitting an app, it makes sense to already start thinking about this and submit as early as possible. I'm sure it'll be some sort of balance between how interesting is your company and your use case. Is this something that OpenAI wants in their ecosystem and helps them further the app experience? Like the obvious use cases that we're seeing around like call an Uber, book a flight from major companies versus how fast are you and how on top are you and how good is your submission. So another one here with the MCP, they'll probably do a lot of automated tests on is your server secure? Are you not going to add your own little advertisements or monetize your app that breaks all the terms here? So they'll probably be looking for a lot of things. So I would play it safe. It would be very exhaustive, and I would be quick if you want to try to get your app early on to ChatGPT.
Yeah. And I think it also does feel very similar to the App Store. Honestly, like going through this kind of process. Obviously, there are site changes, but I suspect you'll also get this kind of like same like iteration, right? Every time you make an update to the app, there's going to be a resubmission. That's going to have to
Yeah,
wait. You're going
yeah,
to have this app feedback. They're going to want to check right
totally.
payments. Does it allow payments to go through? What does the like onboarding flow look like? Ton of questions. So this will be a super iterative process, I expect, and they're going to change a lot, and they're going to learn from the first view. But yeah, great to see this. And honestly, I don't think we're far out now. But we've even seen that they have also just kind of changed some of the wording in some people's connector view to say, apps in ChatGPT. So that's pretty interesting as well. We'll be releasing sort of like information like this, resources like this on ChatGPT. So we basically created a resource where we've collected all the different that are currently public on ChatGPT. We've created simulators so you can go in, understand what the app actually works like, see it visually, test it without even having to go to ChatGPT and do all the prompts. and then also resources on how to build apps, the latest on what's happening with these kind of releases and things like this. So we will share that in the comments as well if it's useful for anyone in the community. And we've got a Discord group going as well for apps and ChatGPT, so you can join us.